Have you ever wondered why, when Jesus walked on the water, why he didn't walk to the disciples? The disciples were already going across the lake. It was in a storm, and everything was going wrong for them. But the Bible says that Jesus walked across the water and would have passed them by. In other words, he had no intention of going to them. He was just going to go all the way across the lake to the next town and meet them there. So why didn't Jesus actually stop and go to them? Because he had a point. He's walking by them and wanted to see if they even paid attention. They're here in a storm, just like you are in life. They're in a storm. Everything's going by. The Bible says the water was boisterous and stuff. That's the reason Peter started to sink when he walked on the water later on. But Jesus was passing by, and one of them looked and was like, "Is that a ghost?" And they all started freaking out, like, "It's a ghost! Now we got a ghost and we're in a storm." And Jesus said, "It is I." And he came and ended up getting in the boat after Peter walked on the water for a while. But if you'll notice, Jesus wasn't going to come to them until they actually stopped in their storm and took notice of him. Jesus would have just kept right on walking. And I thought about, what about with Moses? It was the same way. There was a burning bush, and the bush wasn't being consumed. It wasn't being burned up. And Moses just out there taking care of his sheep and stuff. La, 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 go get some water, sheep. And all of a sudden he's like, "Is that bush burning and not being consumed?" The Bible says once Moses looked, then God spoke to him. But as long as Moses was next to the bush and didn't pay attention, God didn't say a word to him. Same thing with Jesus. He's going to walk right on by the disciples and not help them whatsoever because they weren't asking for any help. How many times in your life have you went through some trials and tribulations and needed help, but you were so busy fixing everything yourself, you never even stopped to look and ask for help from God? How many times he just walked right on by, was like, "Hey, I'm over here. I'll help you if you'll just call on me." And you're just like, "I got it. I'm good." And then you're just stressed out and frazzled because you're trying to do it all on your own. God's there. He's just waiting for you to recognize it and to call on him.